Hello students and families, welcome back to another math help video. So in today's quick video we are going to cover multiplying fractions. In another video I'll talk about adding and subtracting fractions and actually how multiplying them is actually an easier process. A lot of times we tend to think that multiplying is harder than adding and subtracting, but in the sense of fractions it's actually not. So just to give a couple quick examples here, and that's really all it should take. We'll start off with something simple like 2/6 times 3/4. All right. We do not need to convert our denominators to be like fractions. We just leave it the way it is. And there will also be times where, in word problems or in other things, instead of just seeing multiplying, you may see the word of be added in there. So 2/6 of 3/4 may be used. And on some homeworks, we've seen that in some story problems. So make sure whenever you see the word of, you ask yourself if we are multiplying those fractions. All right. So to kind of simply put this here, you do not change anything. You're simply just going to do 2 times 3 and 6 times 4. It's as easy as that. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. All right. So right there, that is an answer. However, we do want to make sure that we are reducing, simplifying, or putting in lowest terms. 3 ways you might hear that word be used. They all mean the same thing. And so when we see a fraction like this, 6 over 24, we're taught to know that those are both even, so I can divide it by 2. Another higher level of thinking, though, is to ask yourself, does my numerator go into my denominator, and if so, how? So 6 does go into 24. So what that kind of just means is I can divide both of these by 6 to take a bigger reducing step. Okay, so if I were let's just say I was going to go by 2s, and I'm dividing 6 by 2, I get 3, and dividing 24 by 2, I get 12. Well, I can reduce that again because 3 goes into 12, so I'd be doing 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that right there, that is my final answer. So if I were to have wanted to, maybe skip that middle step, what I'd be thinking is, okay, if I were to say 6 divided by 6, well, guess what? That's 1, and 24 divided by 6, that's 4. So you'll notice that that's the same answer. So you can kind of skip some steps by taking off some bigger chunks, all right? And so that's definitely needed, though. Our reducing skills are going to be very important, because when we move into a little bit higher of a fraction, let's say, if I were to do something like this, our denominators are going to lead to a much bigger number. So we do want to make sure that we are doing our best to practice that reducing and dividing those numbers down. So we'll use this as an example. So again, you're just going to do 6 times 5, which equals 30. And you're going to do 12 times 12, which equals 144. All right. Now with that, we don't want to leave it. They're both even. So again, we can do that quick little step of just dividing by 2. It is helpful because we don't always have on top of our minds factors and things like that. So if I were to divide these both by 2, I'd be left with a new fraction of 15 over 72. All right. A little sloppy there. I'm trying to clean that up. 15 over 72. All right. So now I can try to ask myself, well, those are not even, so I'm not going to be able to divide those by 2. Well, after 2 comes 3. You might want to ask yourself, okay, does 3 work into those? I know 3 works with 5, so you may have to do a little bit of thinking to ask yourself, can 72 be divided by 3? Which it can. So if I divide both of these by 3, what I'm going to be left with is 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 72 divided by 3 is 24. Now that is going to be our lowest term, because 5 is a prime number, only works with 5 in itself. The only way that I could reduce a 5 on top is if my denominator down here was a 5 multiple, ending in a 5 or a 0. So that's a quick way to know if I'm finished with that, is just to say 5 doesn't go into 24, so there I go. So 6/12 times 5/12 equals 5/24 as a finished answer. That's pretty much all there is to know about multiplying fractions. The more you do them, the better you get. Some of them are going to seem harder, especially if you are left with quite the fraction there at the end, but just practice that reducing. Okay, it's very easy to kind of come up with some of these on your own at home for some extra practice. You just pick a fraction, like 3/7 times, I'll do 4/10, and then I can just practice that. 3 times 4 is 12, 7 times 10 is 70, and hey, practice that reducing. Those are both divisible by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 70 divided by 2 is 35. And that is going to be my reduced answer to 3/7 times 4/10 would equal 6/35.